Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Time and Change Will Surely Show. I'm Tony Gerdeman here with Juck Miletti as we discuss one particular topic, one Ohio State related topic, and talk about the past, the present, and future of that topic. And Juck, we have made it to wide receivers, and this has been a little bit of I don't want to say a pain. It's hard to talk about Ohio State's wide receivers. And then, of course, I've asked you to rank your top 10, which is where the difficulty has come in for you. But
Yeah.
this Ohio State is wide receiver you. I think we would agree with that. But we could talk. This show's usually about an hour when we talk about past, present, and future. We could spend 2 hours talking about the past of Ohio State's wide receivers. And we'll try to limit it to maybe 30 minutes today. But man, there's a lot of guys to go through.
So many guys. And what I was saying earlier as we were talking about this, and by the way, a show that we've put off a couple of times because it's just that I like to speak about things with very strong opinions. I like to develop strong opinions in this particular topic when we talk about this plethora of amazing players that won a lot of Ohio State's hearts and minds, like just guys you love. And it's like, I don't know how to do this. Is basically what it comes down to. There are no strong opinions that are formed other than, yeah, I love that guy. I love that guy. So it's tough.
It's hard to have strong opinions when you find yourself disagreeing with yourself because of somebody else getting into the mix. So yeah, I didn't have I don't want to say I was afraid, but I didn't have the courage to come up with my own top 10. So I had you do yours, but instead I went ahead and I put together a formula for figuring out the 20 best Ohio State wide receivers of all time. And I'll throw it up here on the screen here in a minute. But it's based on receptions and yards and career 100-yard games, touchdowns, career 200-yard games. It only applies to like three people. Career 300-yard games only applies to one person. But all Big Tens, all Americans, Biletnikoff awards, the number of times they're in the top five in the Ohio State record book. And so with all of that, when you factor it all in and then you divide it by the number of games they played, Jeremiah Smith comes out number one. And I added the divide by the games that they've played because I felt like some guys were maybe not getting a fair shake because of the way their careers went. But when you look at this top 20, is there anything that surprised you about it?
I think the thing that surprised me most, obviously, I love Santonio Holmes when we look at all the animals that have come through. I think Santonio surprised me that he cracked the top 10 at number 8. A guy who he was awesome. But when you put it in the context of the way you broke this down, I wouldn't have anticipated him being in the top 10. So other than that, everything else kind of shook out the way I feel that we would kind of rank it for the most part. So not a ton of surprises. I think that your formula this time hit it spot on. Not so much for quarterback, but this time it worked out well.
The math is the math. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, for me, like Santonio is, I think, one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated receiver in Ohio State history. But it's interesting to see like Billy Anders and Gary Williams, some old timers who played
Mhm.
before the 80s, getting in there, Doug Donnelly as well. But yeah, like I I don't want to put together like my Mount Rushmore or my top 10, but I do have my two main convictions here is if I did, Jeremiah Smith is on there, he's number one. But if I were to put together like a Mount Rushmore, I've got to have Garrett Wilson on there as well. And whatever else happens after that, I can be convinced that anybody else could be on there, of the top group. But it's like when I'm thinking of these guys, I don't want to be in a situation if I could have Garrett Wilson on my team that he's not on my team. So it's like those are. I, I don't think Garrett Wilson is the second best receiver in Ohio State history, but I am also like, there's not a lot of guys I'm going to choose ahead of him. So, how do you feel about Garrett Wilson?
So it's interesting
I
that
guess if you want to go ahead and we can get to your top 10 if you want.
yeah. I just want to comment on Garrett because I
Mhm.
think this is interesting as we have kind of had a few guys where we've just, maybe not everybody would feel that way, but agreed upon. But I actually have a weird affinity for Garrett and just oddly find him to be, right up there with the very, very best of the best ever. I mean, that's not an outlandish take, but I also feel like there's a lot of guys where, okay, I could swap him out for him and it wouldn't mean much to me. I'm not swapping Garrett out. Like that is just kind of a magician to me in a way that other guys weren't. And with that, the speed and the explosiveness and kind of just everything about him, he's one of those guys that if we're talking, you can only have four, like he's not going to be off my list.
Because he can play anywhere. He played all three spots at Ohio State. There's one year he was a slot. First year, I think he played Z. And then his third year, they're like, one of those years, Hartline was like, yeah, we'll just put him in X. And he's 6 foot, but he plays like he's 6'4". Incredible hands, incredible timing, can take a hit, is quick as heck. Like, to me, he's the perfect 6-foot receiver, I guess. And that's saying something when you've also got Jaxon Smith-Njigba there as a 6-foot guy, and Chris Olave, and all of these other guys. But I just, if like I said, if I've got a team and you're asking me like pick your 3 receivers, I could put him anywhere, and I would love to have him as a slot receiver. I'll take him as a Z. Jeremiah's my X. I'm good there, but I'll take him all day long.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree. So my top 10, I've got Emeka at number 10, who, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, he's the career receptions leader. I feel silly saying that, right? But a lot of this comes down to, because so many of these guys, when you pull up the all-time this, the all-time this, the all-time this, the all-time that, they cross-populate all these lists. And on some of, one list, this guy's got listed twice, and here's this guy over here, 2 seasons he did this. So it kind of all evens out for the most part, where they're kind of in groups as far as statistics go. And Emeka also played, played in an offense 1 year that wasn't that great. But for me, he's number 10 because I just, when you're on a team and you're not the best wide receiver on the team, it does take away a little bit, I guess. And again, really thin margins of how I'm nitpicking here because everybody is so good on this list, but he's my 10.
It's funny because like he could be the 3rd best receiver of all time in Ohio State history, but yet he can't be better than Marvin or Jeremiah, So it's like never the best player on your team, but he could be the 3rd best of all time. But he is your number 10.
My number 10. At number 9, I got Jenks. Again, you talk about Santonio being one of the most underrated. I feel like in that era, man, Jenks was even underrated in his own era. So he's definitely on my top 10. At number 8, I've got Olave, and the career touchdown king, Mr. Do-It-All. The story is awesome, even though a lot of people want to consistently say he was a 3-star. He was at one time. He didn't finish a 3-star. He was a 4-star coming in. So technically he was a 4-star. Chris Olave was a 4-star. I can't tell you how many times I see that in the comments section when I'm talking about rankings.
The former Olave, 3-star.
Yes, a former 3-star, then a 4-star. So then I've got Jax, and obviously that feels, again, silly putting him that low, but you miss out on a year of your career. It's just, I don't know what to do there. At number 6, I've got Terry Glenn, who was just sensational. And I was a little younger at that time. And those years when you're a little younger tend to stand out a little larger than life. So awesome there. At number 5, and again, this feels silly, Cris Carter, his stats are so unbelievable for a guy that played in that era, still being top 5. Like all these categories, he's pretty much top 5. And dudes weren't doing that back then. The one-handed catch stuff, dudes weren't doing that back then. Just a sensational player. At number 4, I've got Garrett, and Garrett will forever be in my number 4 unless another Jeremiah comes along. Just to do everything, dude. Elastic rubber band man, the hops, everything. And I wish, like every Buckeye fan, I'm sure that he didn't play for the Jets unless you're a Jets fan. And even then, maybe you wish he played somewhere else. And then for the top three, I've got Marv at number 3, Boston at number 2, and JJ at number 1.
Very, very interesting. I was in school at the same time as David Boston, and it was a complete joy to watch somebody that big who was that quick and would catch just a simple out and then spin out of a tackle and could go, and incredibly fun to watch. But I'm surprised that he's ahead of Marvin, because I think the consensus when he left, he was viewed by most as the best receiver in Ohio State history. And then he goes, two things happen. One, he goes to a franchise without a quarterback, and so he can't live up to the expectations. And then two, he gets replaced by Jeremiah Smith immediately. And it's just like, he is the most forgotten guy. And I'm not saying you forgot him. You've got him number 3 on your list. But like, I think people, it was easy to move on because Jeremiah Smith is brighter and shinier. But man, it's like Marvin Harrison, we should have locked it in stone at that time. Like he was, I guess you had him top, you had him top 2, but like he was the man until Jeremiah Smith came in and he was like, no, I am the man. And you go there. But see, this is why I didn't want to do a top 10, because it's like Garrett Wilson, you've got him 4. I can't argue because of the other guys. I mean, Jaxon Smith-Njigba 7. And you said it exactly right. There's just one season. And when I did that formula and I threw the number of games in there to divide by, if you don't do that with that formula, he's like number 22 all time in Ohio State history, just by having the greatest season in Ohio State history. But yeah, looking at this one, if you could have anybody from 2 to 10 on this Ohio State team this year, who would you take?
Garrett.
Yeah,
I think Garrett JJ would be unstoppable.
I agree with that. Now, a little bit here in a bit, I'm going to
give you. I want to say something before we move on.
Yeah.
So I believe that at the time, Marvin was the best. That was my thinking at the time as well. Now, has my opinion changed? Was I caught up? A lot of times I tend to be a prisoner of the moment. Having reevaluated that, I think that I didn't really go back to David until I sat down and really thought about this really hard, and compared eras as well, which always it always is something that throws you off a little bit. And I just ultimately came back to, if I'm building a team then, if I'm building a team now, and I just feel like David, and maybe the pros have something to do with it, though he didn't really light it on fire in the NFL either. But maybe the situation Marvin's had since he's been in the NFL might have something to do with it. Like if he'd have gone and won the Rookie of the Year, maybe that would have solidified it in my mind. But again, we are talking like floss level thin lines between all these guys for me. And a lot of it comes down to like, who's my favorite, who was more impactful to me. And David Boston was definitely more impactful to me, just as a younger fan, where, things just hit harder when you're younger. And that's why, to me, it's Boston. And Jeremiah is just a head above everybody else for me.
David Boston, for me, at the time, was the best ever after watching him in person. And just, Ohio State has had a lot of good receivers. And I will say, I don't know that he was definitely surpassed, in my opinion, until Marv. And I don't know that I can go back in time and say, yeah, I was thinking Marv over Boston or Boston over Marv, because it's just different eras and the number of the different ways they throw the ball and how often they throw the ball. Though, speaking of eras, one of my other convictions is that of all of these names on these 20 players, or however many players you want to throw on there, nobody was nobody was impacted as much by how early they were born, more than Joey Galloway. In terms of like, of all of these guys, he was born too early more than anybody else, because Joey Galloway in today's game would be a deep threat. He could be in the slot. He could be a quick screen guy, and he's 419, benches like 400 pounds, is strong, is compact, but he's not like running back compact. So he's still like, he's just quick. And he's the guy that I always go back to in terms of like, if you could have anybody from a previous era, like if you wanted to bring somebody back in time and just reward them, like you were born too early, put you in an era where you deserve to play, because he did not have the quarterback play that he deserved, or the offenses either that he deserved. And you put him into, I mean, imagine him in 2018 with the Ohio State offense. He would have had 110 catches and 1,800 yards, and it would have been insane.
Again, another guy that was just so fun to watch as a younger dude. And the fact that he's not on this top 10 list, just where would Joey Galloway rank on anybody else's top 10 list? I mean, come on. He was awesome. But the speed was just insane. I don't think his speed gets brought up enough in the conversations when we talk about fast wide receivers, which always goes back to Ted. Joey doesn't get brought up enough.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you some trios, some 3 wide receiver sets, okay? And I want you to tell me which one you'd rather have, and we'll see which one reigns supreme. I've got 7 of them here, so I've got 21 total receivers.
Is it
from Cris Carter to now?
Okay.
So, and this was, I listed them 1 through 21, and then I had a random number generator pick the numbers and create 7 sets of 3. All right.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So I'm gonna pit 2 against you right now, 2 for you right now, and you tell us which one you want, and then we'll carry on. So the first trio is Cris Carter, KJ Hill, and Michael Thomas against David Boston, Chris Olave, and Terry McLaurin.
Jeez. I mean,
I'm putting McLaurin in the slot there, and I've got my Z, I've got my X, and I'm going to be a happy boy.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Boston, Olave, and McLaurin. I just, putting Boston number 1 overall, as I did with, Olave at number, I think 8 for me. I just think that's my tougher lineup.
And now that lineup now you'll compete against, tell me if you would prefer these 3 of Garrett Wilson, Terry Glenn, and Anthony Gonzalez. So we're talking David Boston and Chris Olave and Terry McLaurin, or Garrett Wilson, Terry Glenn, and Gonzo.
I think I now switch, and I'm going to go with Terry Glenn, Garrett, and Gonzo. And Terry obviously was a dude, but Garrett I've talked about enough here. But when you add in Gonzo, who to me as that number 3 guy, that's just an incredibly high level number 3 first rounder stud, do it all. So I'm gonna bump them up to my top rank right now.
All right, so you feeling pretty good about that group? You think they're going to be able to go the distance over these next 4 rounds? Feeling pretty good?
I think it's going to be very tough to beat. Yeah.
All right, here you go. How about this trio? Jeremiah Smith, Michael Jenkins, and Parris Campbell.
That one kind of hits you all, it hits every spot with just an incredible high level. With Parris in the slot, JJ and Jenks on the outside, that's a pretty wild one. And I think that's probably going to be my top ranked group now. I think that'll take the cake.
It hits every spot. It's like a shiatsu massage. So yeah. You're going with Jeremiah Smith, Michael Jenkins, and Parris Campbell against now Santonio Holmes, Ted Ginn Jr., and Devin Smith. A lot of speed on
ton
this
of
one.
Speed. ton of speed. I mean, that is the fastest. That is just insane speed. However, I'm going to stick with JJ, Jenks, and Parris.
All right. Sticking with Jeremiah Smith, Michael Jenkins, and Parris Campbell. Now against Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Carnell Tate, and Emeka Egbuka.
Whoa.
And this group was almost close to playing.
Yeah. So JJ, Jenks, and Parris versus Tate as my ex. I'm sticking with JJ, Jenks, and Parris. I just love the combo of the three of them.
Okay. All right. Well, tell me how you feel about this combo. This is the last one, so we'll see how you feel. Marvin Harrison, Joey Galloway, and Curtis Samuel. You got your X, you got your Z, you got your H. 2 first rounders, 2 top 10 picks, and a second rounder there.
Samuel. Curtis Samuel still doing it too. Man, this is. I might take that one in today's game. No, I'm sticking with JJ, Jenks, and Parris. Yeah, I'm sticking with it.
You don't want to lose Jeremiah Smith, and you love
can't.
Michael Jenkins. All right. Okay, so there you go. The greatest.
Let's not forget Parris, my alma mater, St. V kid, right? So
there you go. And incredible speed. Was the previous season single record holder for the receptions with 91 in 2018 before Jaxon Smith-Njigba in 2021. So Jeremiah Smith, Michael Jenkins, Parris Campbell, not bad. You've got Third and Jeremiah. You got Holy Buckeye and Parris Campbell with the deuces against Michigan. Pretty decent all around there for that receiver trio. Boy, those are some crazy names. So there you go. Our exploration of the past. Now I want to explore the present of this season with the Ohio State receivers. My first question for you, and Tom and I just recorded a Buckeye Weekly recently today, in fact, and it's been posted, maybe it hasn't been yet, about how deep we expect each of the position rooms to go this season, like against Texas, for instance. At receiver, how many receivers do you expect to play against Texas, which we think will be a close game, a big game? You're not just going to throw anybody out there willy-nilly. How many receivers do you think play in that game?
You know, I'm going to say different than Indiana, right? I just feel like starting off, it's going to be really, really difficult to bring in Brock and Cris for a whole lot of action. Will they play a little bit? I don't even know, man. That's tough. I think that, obviously you got your top 6. Mm-hmm. And Brock and Cris are now in that top 6 with Kyle Parker.
Assuming Kyle Parker is healthy when this game is being played.
Assuming he's healthy enough. If he's not, then we're looking at Phillip Bell or another freshman in Jaquaden. But you're not just going to play 3. So I'm going to say, dude, this is tough, right? How about this? If they do play both those guys at Texas, like they're off and running. It's cooking. I'm going to go with 4.
Okay. All right. I'm pretty sure I went with 6. I think Brock Boyd, and this could be 1 snap or 3 snaps or whatever. I just think they're going to get in there.
Okay. 1 snap?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Then I'm going to go with 5.
Okay. One of the freshmen. Not the home stater or not the Ohioan / Californian.
Or both freshmen if KP can't go.
Okay, so you're just going to stick at 5. They don't need to go any deeper than that because they're going to be playing so many tight ends as well, as we know.
As we know.
That's, as you said, that's different than against Indiana, where I fully expect there to be a regular rotation of 6 receivers. And when I say regular, 5 and 6, whether that's Chris Henry, Brock Boyd, or Brandon Inniss or Kyle Parker, like everybody's going to get at least 15 snaps. I think that's what I expect. Do you think they can get to, or first, do you think it's going to be 6? And do you think Phillip Bell, Dazee Jones, they both have had some good moments here of late, can they get to 7? Do they need to get? Is 7 too many?
I think 7 is too many. I think 6 is a lot. I think that my prediction here, Tone, is Kyle Parker out of that group of 6 is going to become kind of the odd man out as we move into the second half of the season, because I really think that Brock and Cris are going to be playing very, very good football and just bring more to the outfit. And when with Inniss and McCuin has been playing great, I just feel like these 2 freshmen are just so different that come second half of the year, 15, absolutely. I agree with that for sure. Like, they're definitely getting 15 apiece.
And we saw them go 6 deep pretty regularly in 2018, but I want to remind people there are 20 more snaps per game back then than there are now, and they were moving quickly. So you need to get more guys in and out to kind of give them breathers. Now the breather is the huddle, basically. So there's not nearly as many snaps to play as many guys as you'd like. So Tom and I have been doing these expectation shows, and I've been throwing out some season predictions and some statistical predictions. I did not do one for Brock Boyd initially.
You did in the spring, though, didn't you?
Right. Well, yes. And so I went. We did another one, and he did it. Tom made his prediction in the spring, and then doubled it in the summer. And then I finally also went and did one this summer. So if I'm going to give you some Brock Boyd stats. These are mine. So you tell me too high, too low on this. These are the entire season, all 16 games, all 16-0. 12 catches, 162 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
You said 12 catches?
Yeah, doesn't that feel low?
That was your spring prediction, or your?
No, I did not do one in the spring. I only did one in the summer. And so this was pre-camp, post-spring. Yeah. So
you're not sticking with it.
No, I feel it's a little bit low right now, because I've got some other numbers here that feel a little bit high, also feel a little bit low.
Definitely the receptions, I think, are low for sure. That's my take on that one.
Well, and the thing that
how many yards and touchdowns you say?
162 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Okay. Now, I think that's all low.
If he does have 12 catches this season, he will tie for 10th all time in Ohio State freshman wide receiver history with Chris Olave and Dane Sanzenbacher. So Chris Olave played quite a bit as a true freshman. He went 12 for 197 and 3. If Brock Boyd can have that kind of year, I think that's great. But Chris Olave did most of his work in the second half. So maybe if Brock Boyd can do it the entire season, then those numbers are going to be higher. Here's one. This feels low to me now, especially after watching camp. So this is Chris Henry Jr. And it's not low for a freshman. It's very high for a freshman. 26 catches, 368 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think it's low. So here's the deal, Tone. When I'm looking at these 2 freshmen, I'm looking at a couple things. Number one, when we pull up these past stats with these wide receivers, they're coming in so much more prepared now than they ever did before, particularly Brock, right? Like, I don't know that we can recall a guy who's come in and we've heard this many coaches say, this dude's like, he's been in college already. Like, he's coming in at a way different level, far more advanced, not physically, though physically has a lot of talent that a lot of those guys had. But what he's doing and how fast he's up to speed, I feel like the trust factor is much different than freshmen were 10 years ago. And then with Cris, he also comes in pretty advanced on that end, but then physically what he adds is just a different level that makes you trust a little more there too. And then in addition to that, the guys that are ahead of them, right? When you look at BI, great teammate, great Buckeye, not a great wide receiver, not a guy that you're like, we can't take him off the field. And Devin McCuin, who has played really, really good so far since he's been at Ohio State. But, there still are some questions as to how good this is going to be with him out there with Jeremiah, or if it doesn't look better with one of those two, we just don't know yet about that. So because of all those factors, I feel like looking at these past great wide receivers at Ohio State, what they did as freshmen, I think there's a chance that these two kind of just both blow it away.
Interesting. Because even with those numbers that I gave you for Chris Henry Jr., which were 26 for 368, that would put him, that would be the 5th best all time among Ohio State freshmen, moving past Ted Ginn and being just behind Garrett Wilson. And just to give people an idea that haven't heard us talk about this before. So Jeremiah Smith is the freshman record holder, 76 catches. Cris Carter is number 2 with 41. Crazy. David Boston is number 3 with 33. And Garrett Wilson is number 4 with 30. He's the only other receiver to hit 30 as a true freshman. And so if they've got 2 guys that can do that, look out. But when I say 26 for 368, this is no slight on Chris Henry Jr. This is just the reality, or the reality of the past. Who knows what the reality of the future and the present is? Jeremiah Smith, I believe he's going to catch. I think I have him tying like Terry Glenn's touchdown record, so I think that's 17. But I have him beating Jaxon Smith's reception record of 95, but not beating his 1,606 yards. So I'm going to say something like, I'll just say 100 catches for about 1,485 yards and 17 touchdowns. One, don't you dare say that's not realistic or not attainable, because you're crazy. I know you're trying to say that, you're trying to take all of the unders on this one, but it's hard to say, like Jeremiah Smith, the projections are just limited by opportunities and quarterback being upright and how the defenses are going to handle him. But I do think he's going to break Jaxon Smith-Njigba's 95 receptions, provided they play at least, say, 15 games.
So he goes as a freshman 76, sophomore 87.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 3rd all time, behind Parris Campbell's 90 in 2018 and Jackson's 95 in 2021. I kind of feel like there is, and I know that Ryan Day has been very reluctant to do this over the last few years, but don't you feel like there's going to be a push to give him the biggest possible bang that he could have? Like, we know what he can do. Let's make sure we give it to him this year in his final year, because it also is probably what's best for the team. So I like your numbers. I don't know that I don't feel like I would be like right there with you on those numbers. It's kind of tough to take an under on that. I feel like it's tough to take an over. Those are some really big numbers with this slow offense, right?
Mm-hmm,
like those are really big with this offense.
Yeah,
but
and like, go ahead.
It would feel very bold to take the under for me too. So I don't really want to do that.
I just think the 1,606 yards that Jaxon Smith-Njigba had in 2021, like he had a 347-yard game in the Rose Bowl. He had another 200-yard game. He had two games of 15 catches. Like, he had, I think, 950 yards receiving in the last 5 or 6 games. So it's like, you're not. I don't expect a tear like that, especially since I don't think nobody's gonna put a running back on Jeremiah Smith in any games this year, which will help. And if they do, you're crazy. But so there's Jeremiah. I do want to talk a little bit about Devin McCuin, because here's some ebbs and flows that I've had with Devin McCuin, because we did an expectation show pre-spring, so like back in February. Then we did another one post-spring. And let me just tell you, so the winter, I had Devin McCuin with 41 catches for 537 yards and 5 touchdowns. Then I watched him in the spring and didn't see much from him.
Right.
And my numbers went from 41 catches to 27, from 537 yards to 384, from 5 touchdowns to 3. And then, so we're talking 27 catches for 384 yards, 3 touchdowns. That was my pre-camp. Day 2 of camp happens, and I'm ready like 1,000 yards. So I think I would probably just maybe double my 27, 384, and 3, as maybe a midpoint for, or a guess for Devin McCuin. Probably, probably better than doubling my winter numbers of 41, 537, and 5. So if I say 54 catches for 300 or for 768 yards, or six, I'll get this right. Yeah, 768 and 6 touchdowns. Where are you with Devin McCuin on that?
So, back in spring, I always thought he was going to be the starter at Z, but there was a lot, Kyle Parker was also there as well. And why is Kyle Parker there when he's a natural fit in the slot and he's played 75% of his career snaps in the slot? Made me think, well, maybe Devin McCuin's not doing what Devin McCuin needs to do to win that role, and that's why he's there. A little insurance, because now behind him, you got freshman Brock and Jerquaden. So now that it seems very, very clear that not only has he seized that role, but he is very, very capable of doing the downfield stuff, as we've seen it with our own eyes, and he is pretty freaky. I am feeling like kind of right there with you, because I don't want to get ahead of myself, because then I also think that there is going to be a push to get Brock and to get Cris involved in a way that, when you look at next year, you got to be able to answer that question rolling into next year. What kind of portal additions do we need to make in this room? How much can we rely on these guys being high level guys in year 2? And I think that shoulders some more experimentation on their part that they both run with. So I feel like you're really well. I would say maybe those are slightly under. I would maybe say just a little bit under.
I think Ohio State would love that if those numbers are under, and you're talking about an 800-yard guy with 50-some catches and, half dozen to 10 touchdowns. That would be great for that spot. That would take some of the pressure off of Jeremiah Smith. That would force the defense to focus more on the other guys, which is really going to be Devin McCuin. One of his key roles is just make a safety pay attention to you, and if they don't, then make sure that quarterback pays and that defensive coordinator pays for not respecting you. And if he can do that, then he could have some really good numbers this year. Last thing on these projections, I just want to talk about Brandon Inniss, because now I did this in the summer, and this feels, I don't know, high. I don't know. You tell me how you think this is, because we're talking about Brandon Inniss last year with 33 catches for 270 yards. So yeah. I'm saying this year 35 for 418 and 4. And if he can average that, 12 or 13 yards a catch, I think that's a win, almost regardless of the number of catches that he has. But 35, 418 and 4, which I did before summer camp. How do you feel about that before fall camp?
So the receptions
feels high to me now, though.
It almost does to me too. I thought, honestly, looking back at last year, saying that he caught 33 balls, man, it didn't feel like he caught 33 balls. And then you see the yards, and it's like, well, the plays didn't really stand out. They weren't very, the yards were so low for 33 balls. So I think it makes a lot more sense when you put him up over 400 with about the same number of catches. And you look at this, this tight end crew, how much are they taking away from him? Are they taking away as much as Max Clare would have? Probably not. So maybe that would logically tick him up a little bit more. But then, I just don't. I know that there are some compilations out there of Brandon Inniss running wide open in a couple of games, and it's got everybody saying, this is all on Julian. You could put one of those compilations together for every wide receiver on every football team. I don't think, honestly, Tony, last year when we watched BI in the spring and in the preseason, he stood out more to me last year as being quicker and more elusive going into the year than he does this year. So I'm not expecting much more than what we got out of him last year, not because he isn't a valuable football player. He's a great member of the team. He's probably going to win a captaincy and maybe the Block O. Very valuable dude. I just don't think he's very valuable in the receiving game. And that is why clutch. He makes some clutch catches here.
Yeah.
There. So that's great. Got good hands. But I don't think he's a production guy. So I'm going to go Probably, I'd go right with you there. I'd go maybe a little bit under. I think a little bit under.
It's interesting because he did look quicker last fall camp, and you're like, okay, I see what all the talk is about. It's true, I see it, but then it didn't register. And the thing that I always say about these compilations, are he's running free. Where is he in the progression? Which read is he? Because if he's 4, it doesn't matter. If he's 3, it
Yeah,
doesn't matter when 1 and 2 are Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. So I don't want to, like, if he's running free, then put him higher in the progression, and maybe they will, and maybe he'll shatter the numbers that we've seen from him. I wonder if would you say he's more likely to be like Xavier Johnson, who had some big moments for the Buckeyes, and in his last 2 years, Xavier Johnson 13 catches each year, but I think because of his running back time,
mm,
we view him as more than
back.
that.
Yeah,
Like he did more things. Um, he made big plays, had a big play against Georgia and other things like that. But I wonder if maybe that's more along the lines of what we'll see if the freshman can step in and do some things. And I will say also, TJ Alford this past week talking about Jaquaden Guilford said he reminds him of Jamison Williams. He's got some Jamison Williams and some Garrett Wilson to him.
sure
So
did.
we'll see. Anything else on what you're expecting, what you think of this room this year?
I think we both talked a lot about how much we like Phillip Bell,
Mhm.
and if there is potentially um, an injury or something, like I just feel really good about him being able to come in and fill in a lot in the slot and be able to hold it down at a pretty high level. He's waiting for his opportunity, and to your point about Dez Jones looked pretty doggone good this preseason. He's
Mhm.
coming along as well, a guy that rarely gets talked about. So all in all, the depth of this room, I feel really, really good about.
I've felt I feel better about it now, certainly than I did this summer when there were concerns and the opinion was, well, let's see what happens in fall camp. I think we've seen, and that's without seeing anything from Kyle Parker to this
Right.
point. And the summer and the offseason that Chris Henry has had has been elite. And so it's would stand to follow that he would just go ahead and continue to be a viable option for the offense this season. To the future, Juck. And
Yeah, buddy.
first, let's real quick on 2027. You got Jameer Brown, you got Jordan Donahue. Are they done? Is there, is somebody going to pop back up? Will there be a senior season where they're like, yeah, well, let's see. They've already got a Jordan Donahue type. I don't know that they want to go ahead and take another
Right.
flyer on somebody unless there's an elite trait that they're like, well, let's see. But do you think they're done?
I think so. I think this is how it closes at wide receiver, barring seeing a situation pop up like we're seeing at running back with Trinard Roberts,
Mhm.
which is it's just doubtful that we're going to see a super high level guy that nobody knew about or somebody knew about and he disappeared and now he's back. And I don't think that they are looking for another projecty guy. You got Jaden Ricketts on the roster from last year. With like you said, he's got an elite trait, a really really fast
Mhm.
guy. You get Donahue, who's got the size. You kind of got your bases covered there, so I don't see another one of those type dudes.
Moving then to 2028, which I'm wondering, and we'll talk about this, is this going to be, assuming everything goes as planned, the 2027 defensive line class, where they've got Jet Harrison committed. You expect that he will sign. They're right up there with Braylon Clark, 5-star out of North Carolina. There, we'll see what happens with Lorenzo McMullen, in-state 5-star from Cincinnati Princeton. Watching him the other day play his season opener. Like, is there a world where the Buckeyes can sign those 3 guys, and is the money there? And that's also factoring in, is Brandon Inniss back? Is Devin McCuin back? Is Kyle Parker back? Like, Parker has they all have another year of eligibility now, but those are also decisions that would factor in. And frankly, we'll have to see what those seasons are to see, like, who would they rather have, a 5-star freshman that they really want, or one last year with a senior who, frankly, if they're thinking about it, then they should kind of move on.
What an like honestly, Tone. Imagine if it is Brandon Inniss, who wants to play it every
exactly.
year, but he puts up the same year he did last year. You got this guy who's an amazing leader and everything else, and all these great things about him, but not a standout. And then you're going to pay him what you'd pay a guy like a McMullen or a Braylon Clark. I mean, it's a really different position that you're in now. Or Kyle Parker, let's say he's somewhat banged up for most of the year and doesn't get to play much. And what's your decision then? Of course, Cortez Hankton has that relationship with him. When we look at positions, as we're now in this era where you pick your positions where you're going to take your swing every year. Of course, we saw that at defensive end in this class of 2027. Where's it going to be next year? You look obviously at quarterback for sure. You got a top 5 running back committed in the class. I think that the defensive tackle, already with Jameer Weiss pushing for Kellen Hall, and we talked about Tyzon Swan or
Aiden Havili.
Yeah, Aiden Havili recently in a show and on the board at Buckeye Insiders, where you can join us and talk about all this good stuff way ahead of time. You get all the juice long before everybody else. And I think that defensive tackle is definitely a position. But then you look at safety, where they're also in on Casey Barner, who's taking the internet by storm. Casey Barner has Ohio State right at the top of his list. I think that more than planning ahead for this, it's almost like, yeah, here's where we'd like to take a swing. This would be ideal. But where are we building these early relationships with that are going to help us lock it down? And then we decide from there where we're going to swing the money. And it certainly looks like at wide receiver, early relationships with top tier dudes lines you up. And it also sets up for the room where investing heavily in 2027 with Eric McFarland and a couple of the other top tier prospects like Monshun Sales that they had a relationship with. It didn't really make a ton of sense to put them in the heels right after the guys you just got this year with Brock and Jerquaden and Chris Henry, where you spent a lot of money in that class, make it every other year. So you're certainly aligned. Braylon Clark loves Ohio State. You get 2 of them, get Jet and Braylon, and I do think Jet, done deal. If you can get Jet and Braylon, 2 of those type of guys, you're money. McMullen, I think, to me, even though he is currently rated right up there high, I don't put him in the same category of talent, and I'm not so sure that he would be worth that same kind of money if that's what he's going to require to get. So we'll see about that one. But yeah, I do think it'll be a really highly rated class here at the wide receiver room.
It'll be fun to watch them put that together, and then invariably at this time every year, you're looking ahead at the next class. You're like, oh yeah, it's like Keon Keeley and Dylan Stewart, and all these guys. They're all going to end up, whatever, and every year is going to be the best class ever. So it never happens that way. So then you're like, well, if it's not, who's the odd man out? And if, like you said, if they can get 2, and the way Braylon Clark talks and people talk about him, like it's almost their recruitment to lose, and they could. Yeah. We've seen that happen with other top flight prospects, and so it is, and then it becomes, well, as long as you get one of the guys, and it's like, just 3 months ago you were saying all 3 could be in here, so it's like, well, as long as next year, as long as you can keep somebody, as long as you keep Austin Miller in 2029, it doesn't matter if you didn't get anybody in 2028, but 2028 looks very good. 2029, the rankings came out, and Austin Miller, who was discussed as the top receiver in the class, suddenly when the rankings come out, it's like, well, he's committed, so how far can we drop him? And he's like a number 10 or whatever right now, and borderline top 100 guy. But like the 2029, there's a couple of guys there as well, including kid from Muller that I watched the other night, who was like a top 10 receiver, like 6'3", 205, already looks big. They're calling him a tight end on the broadcast because it's like that's what he looks like. He's like, no, he's just a big receiver. So Austin Miller, a great start for them in 2029 for sure.
So Rivals comes out, number 11 wide receiver in the country, number 96 overall. 247 rolls out, and their initial ranking on Austin Miller, number 10 wide receiver, number 50 overall. And I'm just like busting a gut, man. I mean, it is so comical to me that they think they can find 10 prospects that have a brighter, and remember, they grade these guys on their projected NFL draft stock. That's how they grade themselves. This guy is the closest thing to Megatron at 15 years old since Megatron. But there's not a ton of film on him. He hasn't been to a ton of camps, which is what they always say. I mean, yeah, you watch him for, I don't know, 6 or 7 plays, and it's enough to tell you that this is absolutely a top 3 wide receiver in any class. It's just that simple. So that'll definitely play out like that in the end. And he is certainly a guy that, for as long as he has to go before pen gets put to paper, really seems like, boy, he's enamored with Ohio State. Mature parents who seem to really like that and like the structure. That one feels awfully good for so far out.
And he's a mature guy, and he's approaching this very professionally. We also saw Sip Cooper, who is the number 2 receiver for 24/7, and Maddox Porter looked very good. He's the number 1 receiver, number 4 player overall per 24/7, also in that 29 class. I really liked Maddox Porter. We talked to Sip Cooper. He is now since committed to SMU. So that's right. As with all SMU commits at this point, it's like, well, it's very early. And yes, he's from Frisco, Texas, so you can understand, but still, there's going to be
Hayden Koo we really liked as well. Hayden Koo from another West Coaster, like Blake Wong. Hayden Koo came in and stole the show one day, got his offer, and he's climbing the rankings too. I'd really like to see him in the class.
Nobody could cover him that day, and I think he had the holes in his shirt to prove it, like just getting ripped up and grabbed, and was letting people know that he just scored again. He was fun to watch, and it's always interesting to see. You're watching these camps, and then you start looking at rankings months afterwards, or however long afterwards. You're like, I saw that guy. Oh, this is the number 4 guy, and this is the number 1 guy in the nation. Yeah, we watched him running hoops. We saw him doing this. We saw him doing that. It's just like it's the very first place to see like the next college stars, because they're coming from all over the place: California, Florida, Alabama, wherever.
Ton of fun, man. Ton of fun. And those are open to the public. Anybody can go. So I'd highly recommend it if you like following recruiting. You can go to those Ohio State camps and look at these dudes in person.
But know who you're looking for.
Yeah.
Else you're not going to see anything.
It's easy to get organized ahead of time. We'll tell you. Firsthand experience.
Yeah, it's a tire fire. It's a mess trying to figure out. Well, did this person say they said they were going to be here? Are they here? Don't know yet. They haven't arrived. Their plane's supposed to land here, and then everybody's cross referencing. Have you seen this guy? Where is he? Who is this guy? I don't know. We're trying to figure out who that is. So if you go in with no plan, you're just going to see a bunch of people, and then you're going to have to ask people, and that's also what happens, because, like you said, I talked with some fans who just showed up and wanted to see it, and they're like, who's this? And I'm like, I think this is this, and this is the quarterback you need to watch, and this is this guy. And you get to sound like an expert at times, as long as they're asking about the right people, that is.
Heck, we thought we were looking at William Green's son, right?
Well, we were.
The kid's name's William Green III, but we thought it was the Browns' former William Green from Miami, a different William Green from Texas. Very, very good. Got a Buckeye offer. Top 300 kids. So chance there.
So there you go on the wide receivers. This has been a long time coming, and it's a very difficult thing to do. And that's why I did not do it. And that's why I had Juck do it instead, because like, I don't want to go through that mental anguish and knowing that you can't possibly get it right. And you're supposed to put it out there for everybody. So if you're watching on YouTube, let Juck know where he was wrong. Let him know what's your, and as you do that, let's see your top 10 or top 5. If you don't want to go that far, because it's an emotional journey. If you just want to do a Mount Rushmore, that's fine as well. But always interested in seeing what the people have to say about their rankings. Hit the thumbs up if you would. Subscribe to the channel if you've not yet done so. If you're listening and want to watch it on YouTube and subscribe, you can find us at youtube.com/@BuckeyeInsiders. And of course, speaking of Buckeye Insiders, you can find us at BuckeyeInsiders.com. Become a member, as Tom says, for the price of a lousy chain store pizza. It is the absolute best way to support what we do. Would love to see you there. Get a ton of interaction. Me, Juck, Tom, You got Marcus Hartman talking basketball and football. You got our X's and O's gurus, Ross Fulton and Michael Pettit. If X's and O's are your thing, recruiting, Juck's there. Football, we're all there. And like if this show interests you and you like this stuff, you're probably going to like BuckeyeInsiders.com as well. So that will do it from here. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.